Thank you. Good afternoon to all. I'd like to call this hearing to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory in the home and the traditional lands of the Ojibwe, the Cree, the Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this afternoon. Introducing the panel members via Zoom, Faye Granson, and also joining us by Zoom panel member, Mr. Brent McIntyre. Our recording secretary is Sally Cofield, and representing the City of Winnipeg from the Assessment Department, present is Darren Ducharme, and via Zoom, Mr. Jeremy Pohl. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note that you will be placed in the waiting room until the property is called upon. Then it will be your turn and you will be admitted to the meeting. Kindly follow along the City of Winnipeg Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close your YouTube or mute it. You will then be permitted to speak in respect to your property. Once your hearing has been concluded, you may leave the meeting. This afternoon, we hear an application for revision of the assessment roll according to the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters of which revision is requested has been described in each application and will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn in testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessment properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the City Administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at the hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board decision in respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to application from exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this afternoon, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then it'll be the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this afternoon. The session will close after all applicants have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. This afternoon, we'll be hearing items 1 to 4 on the docket. I asked Ms. Caulfield to swear in the assessors and the applicant that is present, Mr. Navarro. So please proceed.
Mr. Pohl, we'll begin with you. Please state your full name.
Jeremy Ryan Pohl.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Darren Ducharme.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, we'll proceed what we have on the docket. Mr. Pohl, I understand you're going to be doing the first two, which is 155 4th Street and the other one down the way at 230 4th Street. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first two on the docket.
All right. Mr. Pohl, the floor is yours for number 155 4th Street.
Okay. File number is 221821. Roll number is 120930600000. Civic address is 155 Fort. The 2023 assessment is for $2,006,000. The property was built in 1928. We have an effective age of 1974. There's a leasable area of approximately 10,146 square feet. If we turn to page 9, or photos of the subject. It's a one-story typical, we class it as an OFS, but realistically it's a one-story office building. If you're looking at it, it's could be used for office, can be easily converted to retail if the tenancy were to be of that nature. So it's high degree of flexibility for the type of building. But look a little further on page 11. There is a 2018 listing for approximately $14 triple net for the building. I look back to 17, and there was no vacancy; it was 0%. And then it started creeping up a little bit. So obviously, this leasing is listing is to address that issue. So when we look at the listing, we see that it is what you would expect on page 12. General office space, not below, not above average, but just what you'd expect for the type of building. So if you look at page 15, is the COVID supplementary questionnaire. You fill it out, it indicated it had no impact. And then if you look on page 16 is the INE that we sent. And this is where they're reporting what they're reporting, so we'll just go through it. We see that they check off as net rent. Then they check off approximately 54% is vacant. And then on the following page, they have one tenant. And then they also check off net, but they also check off gross. So that's what they reported. With that said, I looked at the vacancy. There doesn't seem to be a long-term chronic vacancy issue here. It's just they're experiencing vacancy at the moment. So when we get back to the comparables used, there are standard comparable sheet that we've seen multiple times this cycle for OFS or single story or up to 3-story. We have 89 comparables. We have approximately near 300,000 square feet of inventory with an average CRU of around 3,200 square feet and a median of 1661. And then the averages, weighted averages and median is 1585, 16, and 15. So pretty tight average. But again, this is citywide. Downtown, there is less stock of these type of buildings because obviously you have their A through Bs, or your typical buildings throughout the downtown CBA. So when we go through our workup on page 5, we have approximately 10,146 square feet, averaged at $13.61. So they're asking 14 years leading up to the reference date, for our model projected just a little under that. So all things being equal, it looks like a very, very in line rent that we have applied with what the owners expect to get. That produces a PGI of $138,165, and attached to our standard parameters from that is 11% for vacancy, 3% for non-recoverable expenses, $8 for shortfall. The net operating income works out to be $110,350, capped at 5.5%, gives us our $2,006,000. With that, it's a fairly basic brief today, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Mr. Navarro, questions of Mr. Pohl?
Yes, Mr. Pohl. This evaluation was, this is all model. This is not you in any way.
No, it's all model.
Okay. And to be clear, on page 11, that is an asking rent, not an arm's length rent, correct?
Yeah, no, like I indicated, it's a listing. Obviously, when they're approaching about 50% vacancy, they're leasing out what they're leasing out, and they're asking $14 net. That's why I highlighted it. It's highlighted in yellow. And obviously, it's a 2018 listing, as in 2019, they're estimating their CAM and tax, so they don't allow it. But mainly, when we go to the INE, they indicate that it's both net and gross. So
Okay.
Assuming they meant net, given how they're listing it, but
Now you've included quite a few OFS rents, and I've seen these before, roughly 89. Only 3 that I can find in the entire list are anywhere near the downtown, and they're all in the same building at 5 Donald Street. Can I ask why you didn't include any Office C rents closer to the downtown?
could have went with Office C, but Office C typically has limited flexibility as far as retail versus office. And this building here, you could have retail or office with an easy conversion or connect it up. But realistically, it's simply the populace of downtown. It's mainly your A's through B's. It doesn't mean that just because you have situated downtown, you get any lesser rent. So when we're looking here, we see that the weighted average is around $16. Okay, $15 and $16 range all the way throughout. That's those comparables. So when the model do something lower than that at around approaching $14, I don't think that's out of line. I think it's a good indicator market.
Okay. Now you're placing more weight on your weighted average. Can you tell me why?
Simply, it's a truer metric. Like when I do my studies, I do an average, weighted average, and a median, and those three numbers should be relatively, if it's a good populace that you're looking at, should be closer together than apart. Standard statistical practice. If you're just looking at an average and not a weighted average, a smaller footprint could yield a distortion in the true marketplace. So when you use all three metrics, it gives a better analysis of the marketplace. I do that with.
You're assigning a weight to these data points. So exactly how are you weighing these properties?
Weighted average is simply the entire average, the entire area versus the entire rent. So wherever you see square foot area and rent, you simply mathematically times that out, and then you add up the two sum columns, and then you take the average, weighted average, and that's a weighted average. If you're just taking the average, you're just doing the average of all the individual rents. So when you're looking at different areas, smaller areas, big areas, if you want to scale it up to OFA property type classes, your smaller buildings may put more weight on it when actually they're less of a participant in the marketplace. So in this case here, when you do a weighted average, it's just a metric which gives you a truer form of what the actual market is. So
now, as a metric,
same idea why you put in a median. Same idea.
And again, that's the issue here is that there's a little bit of a difference, a disparity here between your weighted average and your median. And as a measure of central tendency, isn't the median the more accurate one?
Median is simply the middle point of the range. The average and weighted average are obviously more frequency. It gives you the better.
Isn't that typically what assessment authorities actually go with?
Look, I go with all three. I'm due to proper statistical analysis. If you look at the OFB and OFA analysis too, I go in much greater detail. I don't see why using three metric is not better. Like, I'm not saying pick either one. I'm saying here's the marketplace, and after the analysis, you see how they fall in line. If you had an average of like 9, a weighted average of 16, and median of 12, well, now you're all over the place.
Right.
So,
but that being said, your weighted average is your weighted average is 1601. Your average is 1585. And one of the reasons that we don't use averages for the most part is because they tend to be affected by outliers a little bit too much. Now, that's the point that I'm trying to make here. Why wouldn't you just go with the median in this case? Because it is, again, that measure of central tendency that tends to be more accurate for something. Again, there are 89 comps here. There aren't 10 or 6 or even 20. This is quite a large sample here.
Let me just make it. I'll just restate what I've already kind of done in a mathematical way. Obviously, $15.85 is almost virtually 1601. If you look at the median at $15, you're 6.5% weight. all those numbers line up within around 5% or 95% confidence interval of what the mark of the sampling is. I don't see why there's an issue whether you're looking at 15 or the median or the weighted average of the average. Basically, they're saying the same number. You're all within about 5 or 6% of nearly 300,000 square feet.
Now, is the model adjusting for area?
Can you be a bit more specific with your question?
Well, again, we're looking at your office comparable rents here. None of them are coming from the downtown. So is the model making some type of adjustment for area?
Well, the age of the building. Obviously, this is an older building, and it does take into location the area as far as cap rates, vacancy, and all everything modeled as far as a regression analysis. So yeah, it would. But when I'm doing it, I'm doing my evaluation independent of the model to see how it looks. And when I'm looking at it, our numbers came in around $15, $16. They're advertising at 14 for their expected market rent. Obviously, there's brokers involved, which what they feel that would market is. And our model analysis came to virtually the same thing. So all things pointing to the same in market indicator around $14. And when we see a rent overall applied at $13.61, I think we're bang on.
In terms of your capitalization rate, your 20th percentile is 560 for suburban B and suburban A, and 690, and again 690 for suburban A and B on the 80th percentile. So this is actually one that's fallen below that. Do you think that that's kind of on the low side?
I'm not going to get into bringing in a capitalization rate study for different properties that have sold. I'm using the model. I'm using the weight that we put to it.
Okay.
Everything's been equal. And realistically, I'll be honest with you. And I'm hopefully you'll do the same. Typically, when you look at these outlying sources, which is what Altus really relies on, they don't really track the lower end bracket of the marketplace. They stick to the A's, they stick to the B's, the heavy investment properties, and that's easy to look at for the limited sales we have for that. We have even less for these type of stock properties. So realistically, when I'm looking to do my own capitalization rate studies for different sales in the marketplace, there's not a lot of stock on these. So what we bracket is how are the upper end inventory doing versus the lower end. And what really plays into this is the marketplace is greater than, as far as purchasing power for these type of properties, meaning the average person or the average investor can purchase these type of properties versus say a $20 million purchase or $15 million purchase north of that for a larger investment grade property. There's less of a market for it. Those are differences within the market. So if you're going to be looked to occupy one of these units, you could buy this building and rent the other 2 or 3 out or along those natures. So you're going to have a more competitive ability for sale for properties such as this. And then, of course, with more competition, it needs a higher sale price per square foot. So lowering of cap rate for smaller properties, I don't see as an issue. Again, it plays into economies of scale. Altus is great at wanting a lower rent for economies of scale for larger size properties. But when you look at the real estate aspect of it, that same rationale seems to be not being adopted. So in my case here, I point that out to the boards.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Granson?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
I have just one question. There's 89 comparables and they're all off of suburban, correct?
Correct.
What is the age range of these? Because some of them are located in newer areas.
I didn't bracket it out by age. Obviously, some of them are going to be newer. But what I did was just look at what the general marketplace is. We're not saying that like an $18 rent for Nassau or whatever, or $19 rent for Waverly, or for obviously newer buildings in more suburban areas than where it's located is an appropriate rent here. I'm simply looking at what the average is, what the general market is, and the general market seems to hover around $16, 15 median if you want to take it from the median perspective. But when our actual further from that, when our model is approaching $13 and I'm looking and seeing it be seen out at or asking for $14, it think we're bang on. Like, I mean, the ownership group has a broker indicating a $14 asking rent. We're below, a little bit below that. So, you know,
Okay,
it's not just it's not just the market variables that I'm using. I'm also using a realistic expectation of what the property owner expects to get through an agent, through their own independent analysis. They're pretty much right with our model. So,
but if you grouped it by age group and say with a 10-year period, would the median not change for each age group?
we would be having, if I would be doing it with each area, with each age variant, we'd have much smaller sample size, and you know, we'd have several comparable sheets with like 2 or 3 or 4 or 8 comparables per sheet, right? So in that case, I don't think we're looking at a big enough sample of the marketplace. I prefer to do it this way, but if the panel wants to see that in the future, I can look for that. But that's something that they're putting in mind's eye too.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
I thank you. Mr. Poole, have you ever inspected this building?
No, not this particular building.
No. But
I don't believe so.
Yeah. But you're
I've been here a while. I had to think.
You're aware where this building is, and you know it's gone through many transitions.
Yeah, and that's why I was indicating, like, if you're looking for an office tenant, you can get an office tenant here. If you're looking to switch it to more retail, you can easily have a retail tenant here, a small tenant bit, depending on what you're going to use the property. So there's a bit of flexibility to it. Granted, it is the location is where it is, just off of Main Street and behind 200 Main Street there. So, you know, it's not in a bad location. It's not in a dominant location either.
Yeah. But I see that, I guess, Mr. Paul, that its original date was like 1928, and then it's 1974. So, did you look at permits at all? Because this has changed, immensely, eh?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting for the listing. If you just look at the one listing where they show the different CRUs, the spaces within the CRU, you can tell it's not a 1928 building anymore. And that's what I'm going to try and stress now. We look at all the permit information that's accounted on a property, and as we go through the years, we'll increase the effective age relationship to those permits. Now, I'm not going to research every single permit that's been on this building.
No.
Typically, I look at it and go, if I saw like a 2000 effective age, I'd be like, okay, maybe I'll look there. If I saw a 1928 and it was 1928, I'd take a better look. Because typically these buildings and all buildings go through about a 60-year cycle. And if you're not reinvesting in your property, and your 100-year-old building is not going to be occupiable in any way, you have to have reinvestment back into it as part of maintaining a building. So when we look at pictures here, if the rest of the suites are the same as the one we're seeing here, then about a 1974-ish effective age seems about right.
With that in mind, I guess there's an old listing in regards to the lease that might be available at 2018. I'm just wondering, the cap rate of 5.5%. That seems to be kind of low in regards to the age of the subject, but we don't know how much money has been put into this either. So
no, and that's what, like, I mean, clearly the pictures don't show a 1928 building. I mean,
no,
they don't.
No.
And you wouldn't expect that either, because if I expect a 1928 building, I would say any building, if it's near 100 years old, nothing's been done to it, it wouldn't be occupiable. So obviously over the years, it's been have upgrades, whether you're looking at permits in a more detailed way. But I'll have to trust the effective age that I see, and when I see it as such, it fits right in.
So with that, I guess, Mr. Paul, really, you know what kind of heat source, whether it's a boiler system, overhead, you can't really tell, I guess. Eh?
I didn't look in quite detail. Usually they're gas. I would expect that would be here. Bear with me. No, it doesn't indicate in the listing here.
No. Okay, that's good, Mr. Paul. That's good. Thank you. Mr. Navarro, your presentation?
This is 155 4th Street. If you turn to page 6 and 7, you can see pictures of it. I was in there in November of 2022 after submission. So what I saw was a vacant unit and an office unit. So one space that had been used for office, and again, one vacant unit. As for the heat source, I did see a furnace room with what looked like a regular home style furnace that you would see in your house. So that seems to be the heat source. In terms of the property and its valuation, we used the income approach. So we have one lease in there that began in July 2017 to June 2022 at 1213, and a vacant space there for 1225. We've come to a rent of 1220 for the entire space. We use some rents that are closer to the downtown. 90 Market is an older building, again, a similar effective age. It's in the Exchange District, but it is also one story. Also 155 Port and 5 Donald Street is just outside of the downtown. Again, there is a slight difference between the assessor's rent and ours, but we don't think ours would be in the 1350, 1360 range, if I'm correct about the assessor's rent on this. 1361. I think it would be below $13 per square foot. So we have chosen a rent of $12.20 per square foot. In terms of the vacancy, again, there's been a vacant unit there for a while. However, you can see in terms of our vacancy, we have effectively the same vacancy as the assessor. So we haven't allocated anything additionally to that vacant space. 8% or $8 per square foot. The non-recoverables, you can tell that that's an error because we don't change our position on that. So that should be $5 or 5%. And the capitalization rate that we used was 7.25%. I don't know if the chair would like me to recalculate this out or
I'm sorry, Mr. Navarro?
I don't know if you want me to recalculate that out.
What did you just change?
So the non-recoverable expenses, you can see that we have 1% there. That should be 5%.
That's just a typing error?
Yeah.
Or is it
No.
just a typing?
No.
It is. Is that, so
Yeah.
that is 5% then?
Yeah, and you can see that on page 15 in our write-up. You can see that in the non-recovered section on page 15.
So that doesn't change your NOI, right?
No, exactly.
Okay.
It doesn't change it very much.
I noted that too, but that's okay.
Okay, and in terms of the capitalization rate, we've chosen 7.25. If you look at our, if you've had a look at our Altus Group capitalization rate study for office properties, you can see that the 7.25 is between the Class B and Class C capitalization rates that we've been using. And obviously, in terms of why we chose a capitalization rate higher, well, again, it's perceived risk. So would there be that much appreciation for this property, returns, all of that, the age of the property, the location, that would all factor into what we think should be a slightly higher capitalization rate than 5.50. So in the appendix is simply the COVID questionnaire and the income and expenses submitted by the appellant. And I am open for questions.
I thank you. Mr. Poole, questions of Mr. Navarro?
Sure. I'll just kind of touch on the one that comes off to immediate mind. You indicated that there was a vacant space for quite some time. The owner submitted a 2019 INE indicating that there was no vacancy, and there was no vacancy as far back as I looked for about 4 or 5 years after 2019. So the vacancy which occurred with the property.
So my mistake, I might have been at something else, but again, we haven't allocated any additional vacancy to it.
All right. As far as market rent that they were seeking in 2018, obviously they saw a vacancy coming. Why would the $14 as far as an independent broker that what they listed not be a fair market indicator?
Because it never is. It's an asking.
Right. So could they not get 13.50?
It's probably higher than the market support in this area.
What was the rental rate of the other 2 tenants that were there? The one tenant that left versus the one that's remaining on. We see that they check off as net, but also they check off gross. So
right, but we haven't submitted information on that, so I can't comment on that.
As far as the tenant, there is one space that is still one CRU that is still needed renting out, or is there multiple?
No, it's a large space, so they're basically cut in half.
Yeah, basically two CRUs. So that's still being marketed.
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, when I was there in November, it was being stripped, so they were shelling the space.
Okay. They were shelling the space, and it hasn't been on the market for any. It couldn't be approaching the reference date any more than 16 months or so. That'd be fair. Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Granson?
No questions, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
My question has been asked and answered. Thank you.
I have no further questions. Summation, either party?
No.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, let's press on to the next property, which is further down the street at 270 4th Street. Mr. Poole, whenever you're ready.
Just give me one moment.
Yep.
File number is 22-1925. Roll number is 120931090000 274th Street. This 2023 assessment is for $1,485,000. It was built in 1928. We have an effective year built in 1963, and we have a leasable area of 6916. So we look to page 11. So on page 11, you see the building as such. Page 12 is the INE. And one thing really stands out on the INE. If you look, there have 0 vacancy. Then if you look under professional fees, they have $87,693 per professional fee. That cannot be right. I'm not sure why it's that, but that just can't be right. So that dramatically affects the net operating income. Obviously, it's negative. If you look at the next page, which is page 13, we have Domo Gas Bar, the Domo Corporation in place. And their rent from a lease signed in 2017 is $11.36 net, from what they indicate. But having said that, I'm not sure how accurate this income stream is. Obviously, with $87,000 for a professional fee, I'd like to know what that is and what a relationship that is to the tenant. So after that is the COVID form, which they indicated has not impacted the property. So if we go back up to page 3, I brought in the OFS comparables. We just spoke to them. I won't speak to them again. They're the same. But I also brought in the OFC comparables because, granted, the way that this building's situated, if you look at it, it seems more in line with the, you have a second story. Its location's a little further down the street. It's more maybe up for office tenancies that would be attributed to this property. So exploring a Class C buildings as well. And that's on page 5 and 6. And as you can see, for downtown, we have about 353,000 square feet of inventory. Our average size and lease and median leasable areas for CRUs is 59, almost 6,000 square feet and about 4,200 square feet. So again, we have our average at $12.62, our weighted average at $13.08, and our median at 12. So getting back to the other property, regardless of this property, around $13, we modeled 13. Little under $14. It's in the wheelhouse of where you would expect this to be. So if you want to use the OFC comparables or the OFS comparables, you can. But just a bit of a test that I have in my mind's eye when I run through this. On page 7 is the workup. We have this one as classified or reported as an OFS. So again, we have a $14.57 rent. Market for the other building was about 14. We see 14.57 being advertised here. Or I should say, being modeled here. So we're about $1 where I expect it to be, plus or minus. In this case, we're on the plus side of it, which produces a PGI of 100,766. Our standard parameters of 11% for vacancy, 3% for non-recoverable expenses, and $8 for shortfall gives us $80,906, and that's capped at, again, 5.45%. So our capitalized value then rounded is $1,485,000. So with that, I'm open to questions.
So, Mr. Pohl, in this situation, you've also included some OFC rents, which you didn't do in the previous one. Your median is $12, and the rent here that the model has applied is $14.57.
Yeah.
And this is the modeled rent, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of the other parameter, that is the capitalization rate, 5.45. That is lower than your 20th percentile.
Can you repeat that? You broke up there on my end.
That is lower than your 20th percentile.
Maybe back up one more sentence.
Lower than your 20th percentile.
What are you referencing though for the 20th percentile? The cap rate?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear what you're talking to. Yes, it would be.
Okay. Now, I did a quick calculation of the NOI and took out that $87,693.72, which I don't know what it is myself. However, if we take that out, we're still left with an NOI of $32,486, which is substantially lower than the $80,000 NOI that the model is suggesting.
As far as contract,
Yeah.
that is what the contract rent is in place. We're doing a model for fee simple. We don't do the leasehold analysis. When I'm looking at it, we see 1136 or so. But I'd like to know why you are just taking it out, but what's associated with that fee? Is Domo doing something else to the building? Are they doing something more for the ownership group?
I'm not sure, but what I will say though is, Mr. Cole, do those does the rent seem so far out of whack that you would be able to produce? Again, there's a huge disparity here, and I think it's not necessarily being caused by the contract rent that's in place. Can you comment on that?
We have an older rent. Domo's been there for as far as I can remember. Although it starts in 17, that's a long-standing tenant. They're paying what they're paying. I don't know what else goes in with the lease. I haven't examined the lease. As far as a new tenant coming into the building, you would expect them to get more than $11, given the fact that downtown around is advertised $13, $14, $15. So I really can't comment any further than that. This is simply with the contract rents that's in place. And I have some questions why there's such a high professional fee associated with this and what they're charging Domo. Or is that an error or what's up with it?
But your own median for your comparables for OFC is suggesting $12.
I understand we're clear, the weighted average is $13.08, and I'm fine with a range in around $13 to $14. That's what I expect. And in this case here, we're about 57 cents over that range. So
I'm not placing as much value on the weighted average as I am on the median.
You don't also seem to put much weighted average on what actual individual brokers are advertising these properties for, and that's signed off by the ownership groups that they feel the properties are worth. We have a property right down the street which you just had at $14. This is very similar.
Do you know what's in this property? Do you know what's in this property?
I haven't been in this property. I don't know when the last inspection was in this property.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Sorry. Faye, any questions? Sorry.
I take it there's no pictures of the interior, or else you would have included them in your brief, Mr. Paul?
I would have. I looked for the last person in this building. It's been some time. If there are file photos, I couldn't have access to them. For what I remember, what I recall, I think Doma's been there forever and a day, so there'd be no need for the inspector to come in unless there's an issue for that. So that's probably why there hasn't been any inspection.
Okay, understood. That's my only question. Thank you.
I thank you. Brent, any questions of the applicant?
Just one on the OFC tables. Again, I asked it on the previous property. There's no ages shown for these comparisons, correct?
No, there's not.
And if you stratify them in a decade group, would the median be less for the older buildings?
I couldn't. I'd have to redo the analysis for that. You would think overall, but that would also depend on what the actual CRE releases are in place. Meaning, was there a tenant fit up a better space for a new tenant coming in, which sometimes happens, or did they simply take on space in an older building that already exists, which would, all things being equal, get you a little bit less rent. So I would have to look at that in more detail. And for this level of hearing, I can't do that for this. So if it's something that the board feels needs addressing, we can look at that next cycle.
Okay, thank you very much.
I thank you. Mr. Navarro, your presentation.
Okay, we are looking at 274th Street. And again, this is Domo Gasoline. You can see the pictures on page 6. It's an older brick building. I believe the original age is 1928, and the city has an effective age of 1963. The building has no elevator, and the rear portion is largely unfinished and used for record storage. In terms of the zoning, I believe that this is multiple use. In terms of the lease rates, again, we've taken from the downtown more so than anything else. We have a lease rate of 11.36, and we've bumped that up to 12.20. Again, that's very similar to the previous building that we looked at. Again, some consistency as they are relatively close to each other. In terms of the other parameters, again, there's no vacancy in this building, so we've applied the market vacancy to this. Shortfall is just the standard. Sorry, I'm wondering whether that is a mistake as well.
The vacancy is the same as the city.
No, I'm looking at the shortfall actually. Okay. Yeah, the shortfall actually should be $8 per square foot. I shouldn't have strayed away from that, and it's likely just a typo. In the end, it doesn't really cost too much of a difference anyways. Management, you can see that the 5% is here in this case, 2% other. We have a net operating income of 64,828, and we've applied a very similar capitalization rate of 7.25 as we did in the other property, 894,177, or 894,000 rounded. In terms of the supplementary information in the appendix, you can see that on your own time. And again, it's just the I&E and the COVID questionnaire. So I am open for questions.
I thank you. Mr. Pohl, questions of Mr. Navarro?
Yeah, just one moment, please. Have you had a chance to look at the other income and expense questionnaires?
I didn't know, and
because they report in 2019 year $55,183 for professional fees, and then they report nothing the year following that, the year before that. So we have a
okay.
range
So, Mr. Cole, I'll just cut you off there. Did you submit that?
I'm giving verbal evidence. I'm just simply going over the property to make sure that.
But I haven't submitted that either, so I can't look at it.
Fair enough. Do they occupy the entire building?
They do.
Because we have 10,146 square feet for the 2018 submission on the actual building itself. So if we look at what's been reported now, 7,075 square feet, that's about $3,000 difference, or 3,000 square foot difference. What do they occupy the whole building? Have you been to the building?
They do. And again, you have a gross floor area of 6916 on your own report, leasable area of 6916, and I have 7075 on mine. That is the information that we've submitted for this property. Again, we haven't submitted anything else, so I can't comment on that.
Okay. How long has the tenant been in this property?
I remember being in this property in the early 90s when I was actually late 80s when I was a gas jock for Domo. So,
I remember the sign being there. I remember the sign being there too. My question would be: is how much of the tenant improvements is responsible for the long-term tenant? Are they responsible for maintaining?
It's very basic to begin with, so I don't know how many improvements have been made to it over the years. Again, a large portion of the back is used as storage space. So this is not your atypical office building or office tenancies where you would, see an inducement or significant tenant improvement on this. But again, we are tasked with valuing property as it physically is today.
And that's my point. If they have a contract rent in place that is lesser than market because they're simply maintaining that property.
I disagree with you on that. I think they're paying for what they get. And again, when we look at your Class C office rents and the median of $12, we've actually gone above the $12 in this case. That's why we bumped up the rent.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I thank you. Faye, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Brent, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
All right, summation, either party?
Nope, I'm good.
No,
Mr. Navarro, thank you for your presentations and results very soon. So
Thank you.
have a pleasant day and thanks for coming. Mr. Poole, I think that concludes your part, I think, or you're going to stick around?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Unless you want me to.
Thank you, Jeremy, very much for your presentation. Have a good day. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may we call a short recess so I can get the other applicant into the room?
How about taking 5?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we'll call a meeting hearing back to order, and we'll have Mr. Newfield affirmed because he is going to be the next applicant.
Mr. Newfeld, please state your full name.
Rocky Newfeld?
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, the next property we have is Pembina Highway, which is vacant property, and there's no civic address. Mr. Ducharme, whenever you're ready, however, there are 3 points that Mr. Newfield has ticked off. So, but I think we'll just read it into the roll.
Yes,
and then we'll deal with it.
Perhaps I can speed matters up for everybody so you know what we're doing. We never submitted briefs because we have no issue with the value. These properties, both today, are classed as 60 other, and both are in the process of a change to multifamily. We were waiting to get copies of the applications with PP&D for development, which we thought would be done by now, and I don't have them yet. So we really have nothing to present until I can show those. So I think there's nothing for the board to review today, unless the assessor has got better links to PP&D than I do.
Mr. Newfield, you had said that you don't have a presentation, but you
Nothing.
do. You have submitted a brief, did you not?
I'm not. Don't believe we did. No.
I think I do have. Nothing was submitted for St. Anne's Road, but there was a brief presented for the one on Pembina.
Oh. Okay. Well, I think we're in the same boat with all of these. Let me just see, because I don't want to waste your time here.
Yep.
I see it. No, we're not going to proceed on that. I think our issue is classification, and I think what we might think of doing is I'm trying to find out when it's being filed, and then we would have the right to obviously file an appeal on class to the board or to discuss it with the assessor first. Generally, if there's a plan been drawn up for residential usage, they're amenable to changing that class for us.
Okay.
I asked the owner today for it, and he's hasn't responded, so I don't want to waste your time. So just confirm everything.
All right. Okay. That is fine. We'll just read them into the roll, and we'll do our little part for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you were free to go then, Mr. Newfield, because you have some other matters to deal with.
No, not really. I did talk for a few hours, but I thought this would be your present is I got nothing to say. Mark that down and remember it.
But you're free to go. You're free to go. We'll read these into the roll.
Okay.
And then the panel members will discuss them. So if you want to stick around, that's fine. All right. So, Mr. Newfield, have a good day.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Mr. Assessor, you can take us through Pembina Highway and do a brief description of the property and, you know, the roll number, etc., and then leave it with us. And the same for the next property, okay?
Okay,
But we'll do Pembina Highway first, though. Okay.
thank you.
Go ahead.
File number 22-2340, roll number 030-319-60000, which is located on Pembina Highway for the roll year 2023, with a reference date of April 1st, 2021. We have an assessed value of $1,350,000. The parcel use is vacant commercial, zone C2. The land area is 67,227 square feet. And our recommendation was to maintain the 2023 assessed value.
I think that's, I'm sorry, Darren.
I was just gonna say, is that appropriate or?
No, that's good. Faye, do you have any questions? You're muted for the time being.
No questions, thank you.
All right. I thank you. Brent, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
All right. Mr. Ducharme, you can go to the next property, which is 1269 St. Anne's Road.
Thank you.
Yeah.
File number 22-2342, roll number 080-812-15325. The address is 1269 St. Anne's Road for the roll year 2023 with a reference date April 1st, 2021. We have an assessed value of $1,889,000. Parcel use is vacant commercial. Zoning is C2. The land area is 86,538 square feet. And the recommendation is to maintain the 2023 assessed value.
All right. Any questions of the assessor, panel members?
None
No
for me.
questions, thank you.
Fred, nothing?
Nothing.
All right. Darren, thank you very much for your presentations, and I think that concludes your part. So we have heard all the scheduled items, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very kindly, Mr. Ducharme. Have a pleasant day.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.